Right, I'm David MacNiven, Chief Information Officer for Sutherland Shire Council. I've worked in several different sectors within Australia, but as you can tell from the accent, it's not originally from Australia. So I've done private sector, public sector, state government, federal government, universities, you name it, there's a sector that I've worked in. So primarily today, I wanted to talk more about the people and the data and less about the tools they use to use them. So how I want to do that is concentrate on three buzzwords that are currently going around or have been around for a long time. So we're looking at collaboration, flexible working, and consumer-driven IT, or bring your own devices. Again, lots and lots of buzzwords, but what does it mean for Sutherland Shire Council? Well, what we're doing in that space is, from a collaboration perspective, obviously we've introduced some lovely tools that allow people to interact with each other. But the way we wanted to do it was talk to them about the data. What do they want, and from a process perspective, how do they want to interact with the data, and then configure the tool to be able to help them do that. Rather than just put the tool in and then try and change their work practices to fit in with the tool, we have taken a different approach, which is saying, we want you to get the best out of this tool. So we'll start to speak to them about how do they interact with documents and other data sets, but not isolated. So most people tend to have your unstructured data, which is your documents, your records on one side, and your structured data, which is in databases, on another side. What we're trying to do in Sutherland is say, no, our customers or residents of the Shire don't work like that. The people who support them in the council don't work like that, so why should our systems work like that? So what we're trying to do is break that down. One of the main things we're working on at the moment is getting off paper, because you can't be that flexible, you can't be that collaborative if you're on paper. So we're trying to get off paper into an electronic world, but an electronic world that's flexible and fits in with how the people want to receive the service and how the people want to give the service as well. So which leads on to that flexible working. Well, there's a lot of tools. There's one here, there's lots of phones round about the place as well. All of them are all great tools, but from a flexible working perspective, if you don't have the infrastructure behind that that can accommodate it, then at the end of the day, it's just a brick in your pocket. So again, what we've just offered in Sutherland is flexible working, i.e. we've now appointed someone who now lives and works in Queensland. They'll be coming on board. They will, at the beginning, come down to do the induction. It's the only time they'll come down and visit us. And then the rest of the time, they're a full-time employee. They'll work from Brisbane. Now, what we did there was we advertised that. So we got a bigger pool of people who wanted to come and work for us because that type of flexibility. Now, obviously, that just doesn't happen overnight. What we had to put in place was lots of tools and techniques to be able to allow that flexibility to happen. So again, the job that the person's coming in to do is purely electronic based. They don't need access to paper. The interactions they'll have with the people will be through technology. They'll use Skype for Business. They'll use FaceTime. Whatever tools they want to use and whichever piece of tool they want to use at their end, we've got a flexible back end that allows for that to happen. So then it means when we advertise, we can get a bigger pool. We're not restricted by the state or even the country. For some of the roles that we're actually doing in Sutherland, you don't have to be on the ground to be able to do them. And then the final one is the consumer driven. We have a lot of, we want to try and attract a lot of the Gen Ys and the millennials into the council. The council has a reputation for oldness and attracting old people. So what we want to try and do is, well, no. The bring your own devices, we're trying to say, well, no, you can bring anything you want. We don't really care if it's an Apple, Mac, a PC, an Android, any brand name you want. We don't really care what it actually is. What we do care about is you have the access to the information and the data to do your job. What we've had to do, though, is put a policy in place to be able to allow that to actually happen. Because otherwise, people will start to abuse that flexibility and their own devices. So we've had them sign up to a policy, but that doesn't restrict them being able to do their job. That just allows us to make sure that the entity of the council is secure and robust and isn't open to any type of cyber attacks. So that was the three areas that I wanted to cover from a data and people perspective rather than the technology is there in the background, but we're not wanting to be driven by the technology. We want to be driven by what people need and be flexible enough to accommodate what their needs actually are.
Can I ask you how successful you are in eliminating paper?
Well, this week alone, every single employee of the council now has a digital record. We had Compactus, like the previous gentleman, we had Compactus full of paper records for 1,200 people. That no longer exists.
Everything was digitised.
Everything was digitised and finished this week. All of our development applications for the last 3 years, we're halfway through digitising them. And the next 6 weeks, all of them for the last 3 years will be digital as well. So again, if you were to walk around 2 separate floors, you see a big space where there used to be a Compactus that's now got another purpose to the council.
Okay. You talked about recently employing someone who lives in Queensland. That opened up a bigger pool of potential employees for you. I think you may have mentioned that you might have looked outside Australia or potentially you could look outside Australia for employees?
The whole concept is, in the role that this was, you could have quite easily lived anywhere in the world. As long as you had an internet connection, you could do this job. And there are lots of roles in the council that are of that ilk. So you don't have to be restricted for actually being in the country. Now, again, that opens up your data sovereignty questions and all those types of things. But again, that's where the security of the link coming in happens. So the way we actually solve that is we have, if everyone's familiar with a product called Citrix, we have a secure connection coming into the council. It could come from anywhere in the world that comes through there. So there's nothing actually out of the country from a data perspective. It's all still in the country because you've just created a window to the country. So from a data sovereignty perspective, you're not breaking any of those rules.
Is this the first time you've employed someone who lives outside the area?
It is for the council. I think about 20 years ago, anyone outside of the Shire was a revolutionary step. So now that we've actually taken a bigger step, it is the first time they've actually tried it.
Yep.
And we did it because all the areas at play were flexible. We had audit and risk, we had HR, and you had ourselves all working about, well, how do we protect the council and protect the individual to be able to get this job done?
Okay. Good. Yes, Elizabeth.
Thank you, David. I think you mentioned earlier that you wanted to focus on people and data, and the technology really is the tool to drive the job. Like in any legal practice or people working in-house in any organisation, that's a lot of change that's happening with digitisation. What can you comment on in relation to an organisation's culture and what needs to happen from a people perspective to engage and interact with these tools and use them so that their job actually gets done?
Again, what we're trying to do with the service that I'm responsible for is to get them out there a lot more. People won't naturally want to change. People won't naturally want to touch a new piece of software or a new piece of hardware. You have to have human beings there to actually help them. So how we've done that is we've changed some of the roles that were more back office and turned them more into front office, of actually going out there and sitting with people, sitting in people's shoes and understanding what they're trying to achieve, and trying to analyze how they actually process the data, how they analyze and get access to the information. And putting people out there, the appreciation that you're doing that, people are going, oh, I'll give it a go. As long as, if I get stuck, you're going to come back and help me. So we've changed the whole focus of the service. So instead of just sitting in the back and when people have got a problem, they contact us, we've gone on the front foot of actually going out there and spending time with them, trying to understand how they do things, and then coming back, having a discussion, then providing them solutions.
Just going back to that cultural change, has it been gradual or has it been fairly dramatic and sharp, and how has it really impacted on the staff? How quickly have they adapted?
The cultural change is in infancy at the moment. We're only 1 year into a 5-year strategy from my perspective. The council itself is going through a more radical cultural change, and that's only about 6 months into its start. There's always winners and losers from a perspective of they like it or don't like it in any cultural change. So there are people who are grabbing what we're offering and running with it. There's other people who are more resident and thinking, well, we've seen this before, we'll just sit back and wait. So what we're doing, we've got a different strategy for different people as to where they actually want to go with their learnings. Because it's all about learning and trying to break down that change is scary mentality and say, no, we're here to help you. If you tell us what your problem is, we'll provide you with a solution, and then we'll train you in what that solution is and help you through that learning.
And has there been a heavy financial investment?
No, we have balanced the books. The budget that I started with is still the budget I have just now. I'm just spending it in more effective